Hello and welcome to Caldwell County Today. I'm Paige Counts, Public Information Officer for Caldwell County. Today I have joining me Cindy Akins and Erica Andrews from Caldwell Hospice and Palliative Care. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
You are both volunteer coordinators. I think Erica is volunteer and outreach coordinator, but you work with all those wonderful volunteers at hospice. Thank you for what you do. Tell us, Cindy, what are volunteers doing right now? We know that it's limited.
We are very limited with the activities that our volunteers can do right now. They are definitely not serving directly with their patients. We actually do have our volunteers who currently serve patients calling them and sending them cards to stay in touch with them. But as far as direct care, and even in like our office volunteers are not serving right now. So all volunteer services have been on hold.
Well, but volunteers have been doing some crafty things, though, haven't they?
They have. They have been making the mask for us, the cloth mask, and they have been making lapkins, which is something that some of our volunteers do all year long, but this is our veteran lapkin, and I'll just go ahead and unfold it for folks to see, this beautiful lapkin. We have several now, thanks to some volunteers, but this is a lapkin that is presented to our veteran patients and the families. So this is something that's keeping some of our volunteers busy, and they absolutely enjoy staying busy, of course. But I wanted to share this today, and they are making some cards, some handmade cards for us to send to our patients. So they are serving in ways that, we still appreciate for sure. We've actually had a couple party trains that we have volunteers and staff who go around some of our long-term care facilities that we serve, and we have posters that we hold up and we wave at the residents through the window. So a select few volunteers have been helping us with that too.
So while they're not as active as they normally are, volunteers are still finding ways to reach out and serve, and that's great.
It is, and they want to serve. They call us periodically and what can we do to help? We want to do something. We're bored. We just, we miss our patients. But we're hopeful that things, of course, will change sooner than later. And again, just, picking up the phone or texting their families and patients that they serve, that means a lot to them as well as the patients and families. So they are still staying in touch as best that they can.
And I don't know how many people are familiar, but Caldwell Hospice has really expanded over the last several years. And that expansion is what brought Erica into the picture, because you are volunteer coordinator for the High Country. Erica, tell us a little bit about that role.
Yeah, so we actually have a workstation in Boone. And out of that workstation, we have staff that all live and work up there. We have our CNAs, our nurses, nurse practitioners, myself, a clinical liaison, and a director of the High Country house up there. And out of that workstation, we serve Watauga, Ash, and Avery. And we have a team of volunteers as well who also serve folks in all of those counties.
About how many volunteers do you have in the High Country right now?
In the High Country right now, we have about 25 volunteers who serve our patients and families. And then we also have about 12 ambassador volunteers who are our liaisons between our churches.
Okay, great. Cindy, about how many volunteers do you have in Caldwell County?
About 225, so total about 250. Yes.
Which sounds like a lot of volunteers, but when hospice is running at full capacity, do you still need volunteers?
Yes. And our volunteers serve in many, many ways. Of course, not all our volunteers are comfortable working directly with patients and families, so we have a long list of ways that volunteers can serve. For example, they can serve in the office. I don't know how I would operate, and Erica would operate without our volunteers that help us in the office. We have volunteers that are so important and so energetic and active in the community. So we're super grateful for them. And we have volunteers that deliver meals back and forth between the units. We have, as Erica said, ambassadors. We have volunteer chaplains. We just, it goes on, but we simply could not do what we do without our volunteers.
When you talk about volunteering for hospice, a lot of people automatically go, well, isn't that sad? So, is it sad?
I think that you have to have a passion, first of all, for serving others, for loving others, for caring about others. Certainly, this is not a volunteer area that some people are comfortable in, with the death and with the dying. But I think if you have had an experience with a loved one who has had service with us, and you have seen what all volunteers can do for a family, that makes a big difference. It is sad, even for our volunteers, when their patients pass, but it's so rewarding, and I think giving to our families and to our patients means so much to them that the benefits much outweigh all of that. So,
Erica, when you think about your volunteers, you don't ask them to do something where they're not comfortable. Can you talk a little bit about that and finding the right fit for each volunteer?
Certainly. So whenever a volunteer goes through volunteer training, we conduct an interview afterwards, because we talk about so many things that they might face during the interview training as volunteers. So we want to really see what they're comfortable with and get to know. We have a special type of volunteers called 11th hour, and that's for folks who are comfortable being there as the patient is reaching those final moments in their lives. Most of our volunteers are not there during that time. So figuring out during that interview kind of what they're comfortable with, and that changes over time. So we're always kind of touching base and seeing what they're comfortable with and what they're not, and just kind of giving them assignments based off of that comfortable level that they have.
Let's talk a little bit about that. As a volunteer serves, maybe they start out in the office. Do you see them, some of them want to expand and go into other areas?
Most certainly. As a matter of fact, in one of my recent trainings, we had a volunteer that was very uncomfortable serving with patients. I mean, that just was not something that she knew she was going to want to do, so she started out working some in the office. And then as time progressed, she said, I really have a passion for bereaved, and I really think I might want to start serving not necessarily patients, but family members of patients who have passed. So she started working as a bereavement volunteer, and she calls the widow and has gone to her home and spent lots of hours just spending time with her and talking, and they've formed a great relationship. So things do change over time. I think the more our volunteers get familiar with our staff, and the more they feel as part of the team, the more they want to start really getting direct contact or giving direct patient time. So it does change, definitely.
And you just mentioned a volunteer who worked with bereaved families. So there are really a wide variety of areas. Almost every talent there is an area for that you can serve at hospice.
There really is.
Talk to me a little bit about your training and what that looks like.
Well, first, we want to say that it's not a training that you have to be a clinical person to attend. You don't have to have any kind of special background. Again, you just have to have a passion for serving others and loving to help others. It does require some time. Our trainings are 2 days, and they're not consecutive days, but 2 days during the week. For example, usually it's a Monday or Wednesday or Tuesday and Thursday. But it usually is a 16-hour training. Medicare requires that we have 12 hours, but we extend that just because we feel the need to really give added education and some extra support and training to our volunteers before they dive in. So it's a 16-hour training. We're going to actually have, however, in a couple weeks in our July training, we're going to have a virtual training. It's our very first one, so it is not going to be a lengthy 16-hour training. If someone wants to attend, it's going to be about half the time, and we can give lots more information about that to folks that are interested. But the training is really great because most of the presenters are staff. Our CEO presents, our medical director, our medical social workers, our nurses, our chaplains, our bereavement coordinator. So you see we get a good variety of staff that actually present and just tell firsthand what it's like as a staff member and how they communicate with volunteers. So they also receive a manual, a very thick manual with lots of great information. And then they get a meal, lunch, and a light breakfast and snacks all day long. That is not our virtual training, of course, but our normal trainings. So the trainings are really, really, really good. I don't think that I've ever had a volunteer come through training that's regretted coming through, hasn't said that they've just learned so much about hospice that they never thought existed within our organization. So our trainings are awesome. A lot of the information that the volunteers get, our staff get as well when they come through orientation into Caldwell Hospice and palliative care. So it's an excellent, excellent training.
And I have to second that, because as a hospice employee, I went through training many years ago, and there's so many facets and so many skills you pick up, like how to talk to people, how to talk to people who are grieving. It's just a whole lot of great information that you share. How much time does being a hospice volunteer require? And that's for either one of you. How much do you have to volunteer during a year?
We require 4 hours of volunteer service time, and that's not much. It's not much at all, but that is what we require, and we keep up with that. So we also require 2 hours of education per year, which also is not a lot. And we do provide what's called in-services, which are educational opportunities for our volunteers. A lot of those in-services, of course, are in our house at our McCurry Professional Center in Hudson. We have a very nice facility where we have speakers come, and we have just great information. But that is the requirement, is the 4 hours of volunteer time per year, again, which is not a lot. But, we don't want to overwhelm volunteers. People have busy schedules, especially nowadays, lots of family commitments, all kinds of commitments. So we want it to be flexible for folks, and so that they know they're not overcommitting when they come to volunteer, because they're really not. Many of our patient family volunteers who do serve directly with our patients and families, they usually serve about 4 times a month, maybe 4 visits. It's ideal if they can do that. If they can serve their patient, 1 hour a month, that's great too. It just depends on the volunteer and what they have going on, which again gets back to the matching, being sure that we find a volunteer that has the time to serve. And
talk to me a little bit about matching volunteers with patients.
Yeah, so whenever the social worker talks to the family and they decide that they would like a volunteer involved, they fill out a form that gives us information about that patient's interests, the family's needs, and kind of what they're looking for out of a volunteer. And then we have all that information from that initial interview that we do with the volunteer, and we're able to look at that information from them and the information to match to see what would best be suited for them. So if we have a volunteer who really enjoys gardening and being outside, and we also have a patient who really likes those things, we'll try to pair them up and see,
What if I'm a volunteer and I go visit my patient and it's just not a good fit? For some reason, I just don't click with that patient or the family. What happens then?
And that does happen, and it's okay. We just reassign a new volunteer. We kind of do another assessment. The medical social workers are our primary team members as far as volunteer services go, because again, as Erica said, when the assessment's done, the social worker does that. And so our medical social workers do call the volunteer at least once a month, just to check in to see how they're doing, if they need anything, if there's anything that the volunteer needs to share with the social worker. So, but back to your question, it does happen, and again, we just reassure everybody that it's okay, it happens, but that we just find another volunteer. And it could be too that at assessment a volunteer was requested, and then to come to find out later on down the road, maybe we just don't need a volunteer after all. Or vice versa. They could first as assessment say, no, I don't really think we need a volunteer now. But weeks down the road, they learn that, we could absolutely use someone to come in and provide some caregiver relief. So.
And when you say caregiver relief, what does that entail?
Well, a lot of our families do have primary caregivers who serve 24/7 around the clock, and who simply just need a break. And that break can mean just to get out and go for a walk around the neighborhood, to get their hair done, to go to the mall, whatever it is. And we don't really care. We just want to be sure that caregiver gets some relief. So we have volunteers that go into the home or wherever the patient calls home, and they spend time with that patient. It could be that they just sit and watch TV with the patient, or it could be that there's more communication with the patient. Maybe they just need somebody to talk to, but the main goal is to allow that family member or primary caregiver some relief, to get a break, and our volunteers love to do that.
And it's really not about providing any physical care, anything like that. It's really just visiting with a friend, which is a really, really good way to look at it.
It is.
So as we talk about the virtual volunteer training, I know this is new for both of you. We were talking before we started filming that this could be an adventure.
Yeah.
Because we've all sat through some virtual meetings that have been challenging. So talk to me a little bit about the format of this and what it's going to look like.
Well, we do, of course, want individuals to call us or email us to let us know that they're interested, and then we'll send them an invitation via email, and it will be a link to where it's pretty simple. They just go to their email and log on that day. And if you've had experience with Zoom, you kind of know what I'm talking about. But it really will simply just be training at the comfort of your own home. And if you're not familiar with Zoom, that platform, if you have questions and you're interested in attending our training, just call us and we'll go over all that with you, of course, beforehand. But you will simply just be able to see our presenters on your computer. You'll be able to hear them, you'll be able to talk to them just as you would in a training room like this. But it's just going to be a virtual training, and Erica and I will be there trying our best to be sure everybody can hear and see. And but we're super excited. This may be something that we continue to do in the future. No one knows, but we're excited about it, and we're grateful to have this opportunity to do this, because we don't want to delay training any longer than we have to. And if this is the way we can do it, then by golly, we'll try and see what happens.
And you said we don't want to delay training, and I'm looking at your flyer about training, and you have some current needs, some people that you're really looking for, people with some special skills. Well, I'll say it that way. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Who do you need?
Well, our primary need is our patient family volunteers, but we also need hairdressers. We need volunteers who have a talent that they like to share. If you play an instrument, if you sing, if you would just like to provide some of your God-given talent to our families, that goes so far. And even if you just have the gift of listening, I think that's huge. You don't have to talk. Silence is okay. And I think we really try to stress that a lot in our training, is that you don't have to be the one that's talking. It's sometimes awkward not to have conversation with someone, but a lot of times our patients just need that presence of someone there to hold their hand. They don't have to talk. But back to your question again, yes, we do need some hairdressers. That is a great need. Our patients love to get their hair cut. That's important to them. And Erica, am I missing anything?
I think in the high country we have a real need for some extra veteran volunteers. We serve a very large veteran population, and a lot of those folks would like to have another veteran to accompany them and spend some time with them. They also present them oftentimes with a little ceremony thanking them, along with the lapkin and a certificate thanking them for their service. And that's a really neat and special way to give back. We also do the Legacy Project, and that's our volunteers who go in and we train them on how to use our iPad, on how to film the patient in talking and giving some life review, things they want to leave behind for their family. So that's a really neat way as well.
A lot of really neat ways to serve. Is there anything we have forgotten? There's so much hospice does with volunteers and so many things going on. Is there something that we've forgotten or something we need to talk about?
Well, I think we just really want to stress, too, today that with all that's going on with the COVID crisis, that we just want to reassure our volunteers now that are already serving and have served for so long, or even our new volunteers that haven't gone through or gotten the chance to even get started yet. We had a training in March, and so those volunteers haven't gotten to dive in yet. But, just want to reassure everybody that we are still very active what we're doing. We are still serving patients. That hasn't changed. But we just want to, thank everybody for being patient with us, and that we will certainly continue on as we have, and we're hopeful that things are just going to pick up very soon, and we'll continue with our trainings and our volunteer services, and we do want people to spread the word, because we really do need some volunteers. They're so vital. We absolutely couldn't do what we do without them, and they are a part of our team. We love them, and we need more. So if people can just spread the word.
Erica, any final words from you? She's like, no, not today. Thank you both for being here and for what you do with Caldwell Hospice. We really do appreciate it. And if you're thinking about volunteering with hospice, sign up, do the training, reach out to Cindy or Erica, and they will help you get started. And thank you for watching Caldwell County Today.